There was a time when learning felt effortless. You absorbed new ideas quickly. Teachers praised you. Relatives spoke of your future with confidence. The world felt open and unfamiliar things didn't intimidate you. They invited you. But at some point, that lightness disappeared. New skills now feel heavy. Challenges trigger hesitation instead of curiosity. You watch others move forward while you feel strangely stuck, circling the same ground. And quietly, a question begins to form. Where did my talent go? Did it really fade with time, or did something else happen? As a child, talent is rarely something you consciously manage. It's simply noticed by others first. Teachers praise you. Adults describe you as bright or gifted. Over time, those words begin to shape how you understand yourself. Without realizing it, intelligence stops being an ability and starts becoming an identity. You're not just someone who can learn quickly. You are the smart one. This shift matters more than it seems. When intelligence becomes who you are, struggle no longer feels neutral. It feels personal. Difficulty isn't just a challenge to overcome. It feels like a threat to your sense of self. As long as things come easily, the identity feels stable. But the moment learning slows down, which it inevitably does, uncertainty appears. You don't just wonder how to solve the problem. You wonder what it says about you. So instead of leaning into difficulty, the mind begins to protect the identity. It avoids situations where effort is visible, not because you're incapable, but because your self-worth became attached to ease. Early praise feels harmless, even encouraging, but psychologically, it trains the brain to associate value with speed and immediacy. When you're praised for understanding things quickly, your mind learns a subtle equation. Fast equals smart, slow equals something is wrong. As a child, this rarely causes problems. Most material is simple enough to grasp quickly, but as life becomes more complex, that equation quietly turns against you. When something doesn't click right away, discomfort arises. Not just frustration, but self-doubt. The task itself becomes secondary to the fear of what struggling might mean. So instead of staying with the problem, many people retreat. They return to what feels familiar. They repeat what they already know how to do well. Over time, this creates a false narrative. I used to be talented. Now I'm not. In reality, nothing was taken away. What changed was the tolerance for effort without immediate reward. Early praise didn't ruin talent, but it often narrowed the path through which talent was allowed to grow. As an adult, learning changes. Problems become layered. Skills take longer to develop. Progress is less visible and less immediate. But for people who are praised for being quick learners, this shift can feel deeply unsettling. Difficulty no longer registers as a normal part of growth. Instead, it's interpreted as evidence of decline. When something feels hard, the mind doesn't ask, "What can I try next?" and it asks, "What happened to me?" This is where many people begin to hesitate. They second-guess their ability before they've even given themselves time to practice. Effort feels exposed, struggle feels embarrassing, so they avoid starting, or they quit early, not because they lack capability, but because difficulty has been emotionally misclassified as failure. Psychologically, this creates a loop. The less you stay with hard things, the less proof you collect that you can grow. And the less proof you have, the more convincing the story becomes. I'm not good at this anymore. Another quiet force deepens this feeling, comparison, but not the obvious kind. You don't compare your beginning to someone else's beginning. You compare your internal struggle to their external outcome. You see people posting achievements, speaking confidently, moving decisively. What you don't see are their doubts, repetitions, and abandoned attempts. This creates a distorted picture of progress. Others appear to advance smoothly, while you feel stuck in place. Psychology calls this an availability illusion. Your mind has full access to your own uncertainty, but only partial access to others' reality. So every pause in your progress feels amplified. Every delay feels like confirmation that you're falling behind. In this mental environment, talent doesn't disappear, confidence does. And without confidence, even strong abilities hesitate to come forward. You're not circling because you can't move. You're circling because your perception of motion has been quietly skewed. Talent does not operate in short bursts. It requires sustained attention, long enough for ideas to connect, deepen, and evolve. But modern life rarely allows that. Notifications, messages, short videos, and constant task switching fracture attention into fragments too small for deep work. The brain adapts to this environment. It becomes efficient at scanning, reacting, and moving on. What it loses is the ability to stay. This doesn't mean your mind has become weaker. It means it has been trained for speed instead of depth. Psychological research shows that creative insight and skill development often emerge during uninterrupted focus, a state sometimes called flow. Without that state, even strong abilities remain underutilized. So when you sit down to learn or create and feel restless, unfocused, or blocked, it's not a lack of talent. It's a lack of cognitive space. You didn't become less capable. You simply stopped giving your mind the conditions it needs to work fully. As we grow older, survival begins to matter more than exploration. We learn to meet expectations, follow structures, and avoid standing out. This adaptation is practical. It helps us function in school, work, and society, but it also comes with a psychological cost. Traits often linked to talent, curiosity without a clear purpose, unconventional thinking, deep personal interests, don't always fit neatly into adult systems. So they get trimmed away, not because they disappear, but because they seem inefficient or impractical. Over time, this narrowing becomes normal. You stop noticing what you've set aside, and yet talent often lives in those very traits. When they're suppressed long enough, your abilities feel muted, not gone, just inaccessible. You didn't lose your talent growing up. You learned how to hide the parts of yourself that made it visible. From a psychological perspective, talent is not something the brain deletes. It's something the mind protects. When an environment no longer feels safe for experimentation, abilities don't vanish. They retreat. The brain prioritizes stability over growth. As responsibilities increase, mistakes feel more costly. Time feels limited. The margin for trial and error shrinks. In response, the mind shifts strategy. It leans toward what is familiar, predictable, and efficient. This is not laziness, it's self-preservation. But over time, this protective pattern has a side effect. The range of expression narrows. The willingness to struggle fades. Talent often needs uncertainty to breathe. Without room to explore, it stays dormant. Not dead, but hidden. So when you feel like your abilities are locked away, it's not because you've lost them. It's because your mind learned that showing them no longer felt safe. Understanding this changes the story. Talent isn't gone. It's waiting for permission. Reconnecting with talent rarely begins with doing more. It begins with releasing pressure. The label gifted often carries an unspoken demand to perform well, quickly, consistently, and visibly. Over time, that demand becomes heavy. To move forward, something needs to be put down. Letting go of the gifted identity allows space for a healthier one, someone who learns through effort, mistakes, and repetition. This shift can feel uncomfortable. It may even feel like losing status, but psychologically, it's freeing. When learning is no longer a performance, curiosity can return. You stop asking whether you're still talented. You start asking what genuinely interests you. And in that quieter mindset, abilities reemerge naturally, not as proof of worth, but as a byproduct of engagement. Letting go isn't lowering your standards. It's removing a constraint that was never meant to last. When people try to get their talent back, they often focus on themselves. Am I still smart enough? Am I falling behind? But talent doesn't respond to pressure or self-evaluation. It responds to conditions. Psychologically, growth requires a specific environment, time without interruption, permission to move slowly, and space to repeat without judgment. When those conditions are missing, even strong abilities struggle to show up, not because they're gone, but because there's nowhere for them to operate. Rebuilding talent isn't about proving intelligence. It's about designing a setting where learning is allowed to be inefficient at first. This means choosing depth over speed, consistency over intensity, presence over performance. When you shift your focus from protecting your image to supporting your process, something changes. Effort feels safer, curiosity lasts longer, and slowly, without force, your abilities begin to re-engage. When you return to something out of genuine curiosity, not obligation, the experience feels different. Time passes more quietly. Your attention settles instead of scattering. In that state, you may notice something familiar, not the ease you had as a child, but the engagement you forgot you could feel. Talent rarely returns all at once. It comes back gradually, through moments of absorption rather than moments of achievement. You realize that what you lost wasn't ability, it was access. Talent was never meant to be a shortcut to success. It's a capacity that needs care, patience, and honesty. Like a lens, it grows dull when neglected and clear when tended to. When you stop rushing to reclaim who you were and allow yourself to become who you are now, that lens begins to reflect light again, and this time the light feels earned.